She won't text you first, not because she doesn't feel anything, but because feeling something is the very reason she stays silent. It's not logic that holds her back, it's pride. It's not peace that keeps her away, it's fear. She's still watching, still remembering, still wanting. But she'll stay hidden, hoping you make the first move. And if you do, she wins. Not because she loves you, not because she's ready, but because you confirmed what she needed to believe, that she still matters more to you than you matter to yourself. This is how most men lose power. Quietly, privately, emotionally, by interpreting silence as indifference, by thinking her distance means detachment, by assuming that absence equals closure. But absence is where power changes hands. When a woman leaves, she's not always done with you. She just wants to see if you're done with yourself. And the moment you fold, even a hope you're well, you fail that test. You give her a gift she didn't earn: certainty. Certainty that she can have you. Certainty that you're still tied to the emotional hook she left in you. Certainty that no matter how much time passes, you'll still respond to her ghost. Women don't need closure. They don't need permission. They need proof that they were unforgettable. Your silence denies her that proof. That's why it hurts her more than she'll ever show. Because silence can't be argued with. It can't be decoded, defended against, or dismissed. It sits in the back of her mind like a mirror she can't stop looking into. And every day you don't reach out, that mirror gets sharper. She starts to wonder, not just about where you are, but who you've become. Because silence isn't emptiness. It's potential, and the potential version of you. The one she imagines you're becoming while she's not watching. That version haunts her more than the man she used to know. That's why women check stories. Not to see your face, but to feel your energy. Is he still the same? Is he still hoping I'll come back? Is he still orbiting me? Or did he disappear into something I can't touch anymore? And here's the truth. She'll never tell you. She doesn't want to reach out. Not because she doesn't miss you, but because if she does, she risks everything. Her pride, her image, her ego. Reaching out would mean admitting you matter, and that's a war her pride doesn't want to lose. So she waits, silently, strategically, hoping you blink first, because the one who breaks the silence first loses the illusion of strength. But strength, real strength, doesn't need illusion. It doesn't reach out to prove a point. It doesn't post quotes about healing. It doesn't stalk profiles looking for hints. It just moves forward, without noise, without need, without asking for closure. The most unforgettable men aren't the loud ones. They're the ones who vanish with calm conviction. Not because they're trying to make a statement, but because they don't need to say anything. A man who understands his value doesn't beg for reminders. He doesn't explain his absence. He doesn't ask if she's okay. He knows she's not. Because silence always breaks the one who lives for attention. And when the days turn into weeks, and you haven't sent the message she expected, she doesn't feel strong. She feels exposed, because now every post is a risk. Every photo is a guess. Every update is a test you're no longer taking. She can't predict you. She can't control you. She can't reach you. That's the moment she starts to miss you. Not the man who chased, the man who vanished. And what does she remember? Not your gifts, not your jokes. She remembers how you made her feel seen. And now she's unseen by the one man who truly knew her. But here's where most men fail. They think she needs a reminder. They think one message won't change much. They think she's just scared and needs reassurance. What she actually needs is silence. Not as punishment, not as manipulation, but as the only honest answer to the choice she made. She walked away. Let her feel the full gravity of that. She went silent. Let her hear the echo of what she lost. Because a man who stays silent doesn't just hold power, he becomes it. She'll keep watching. That much you can be sure of. Because curiosity doesn't fade when a man stays still. It sharpens, and the less she knows about your world now, the more power your silence holds. Every day she doesn't hear from you, her mind creates stories, scenarios, possibilities. Did he meet someone? Did he finally realize he deserves better? Has he already forgotten me? She scrolls. She checks. She pretends not to care. But the longer your name stays absent, the heavier her interest becomes. And still she won't reach out. Because if she does, she loses. She loses the image she tried to craft, the illusion of strength she built around herself like armor. She told her friends she's over you. She told herself that walking away was growth. But growth doesn't feel like this. Growth doesn't leave her lying awake at night, refreshing a screen she swore she wouldn't open again. The silence you hold, it's not just absence, it's exposure. It strips away her performances. It confronts her with the truth that she still wants to matter to a man who stopped needing her. And no quote, no night out, no new follower can compete with that. This is where most men fall. Right at the edge of power. They mistake her silence for disinterest. They let their emotions take the wheel. And in a single moment of weakness, they reach out. They check in. They try to sound casual, nonchalant. But she sees through it. She feels the energy behind it. You're not detached. You're desperate. And just like that, she wins. She gets validation. She gets certainty, and she gets it without risking a thing. Now she knows. You're still waiting, still affected, still orbiting her emotional gravity, and she'll breathe easier. Not because she wants you back, but because she doesn't have to fear losing you anymore. You've made yourself emotionally available without her lifting a finger. That's not strength. That's surrender. She won't respect it. She'll file it away as one more man I still have access to. She may even respond. Cold, polite, detached. But it won't bring her closer. It will only shrink you in her eyes. Because in this game, the only move that matters is the one you don't make. Understand something emotionally controlled. Men are not rare because they're perfect. They're rare because they do not respond to pressure. They let the moment pass. They let the storm rage. And still they hold. That's what she can't predict. That's what she can't replace. Because most men collapse. Most men fold by day 4. They crumble under the weight of silence because they were never trained to carry it. But silence is your gym, your battlefield, your proving ground. It's where weak men beg and strong men build. And what do you build? Not a response, not a counter message. You build presence. A life so full her absence feels irrelevant. A routine so sharp you stop needing to be noticed. You rise without needing her to see it. And eventually she will feel it. Not in what you say, but in what you no longer need to say. Her silence becomes her prison. Your silence becomes your freedom. She stays frozen, trapped in the game she started. You move forward, uninterrupted, unannounced, unstoppable. And the irony, the very moment she starts to truly miss you, will be the moment you no longer miss her. Not because you're bitter, not because you don't care, but because you've built something larger than nostalgia, something heavier than memory, a life that no longer needs her approval to feel full. And that's when she breaks. When she realizes she's not haunting you anymore. She's not special anymore. She's just one more name in a story that no longer needs a sequel. Because men like you don't chase ghosts. You outgrow them. She might still think she has time. Time to reach out when she's ready. Time to test the waters with a casual message. time to return to a man she assumes is still waiting. But time doesn't freeze just because she left. It moves. And it changes you in ways she didn't plan for. Because while she stalls in silence, trapped by ego and pride, you've been growing quietly, separating your identity from her validation, reclaiming ground she never should have occupied. She remembers a man who once waited, a man who would have answered instantly, a man who needed her more than he needed clarity. That man is gone. And the silence you hold now isn't just distance, it's evolution. You've stopped asking questions. You've stopped replaying memories. You've stopped needing her to see the man you're becoming. Because deep down, you've started to see it yourself. There's no need to announce it. No caption can describe it. No Instagram story can capture it. It's not a performance, it's a shift. A shift from seeking to selecting. From needing her attention to earning your own respect. And when that happens, something powerful takes root inside you. The craving fades, the wondering dies off, and her silence becomes irrelevant. She didn't break you, she revealed you. She revealed the parts of you that were still waiting to be sharpened. The parts that depended on being seen. The emotional muscle you never had to build until she walked away. Now you train it every day, every text you don't send, every profile you don't check, every moment you choose presence over impulse. You build weight, you build edge, you build the rare kind of man she wasn't prepared to lose. Because most women don't lose men. They delay them. They stall the goodbye. They keep the door open with mixed signal stories and silence. But when you don't walk back through that door, when you vanish into your mission, they feel the goodbye all at once. Not in a dramatic explosion, but in a slow collapse. A creeping ache that says he's not coming back. And that ache that's not something she'll ever admit. She'll double down. More stories, more smiles, more captions about independence. But watch closely. The captions get louder when the silence starts hurting. Because the woman who truly moved on doesn't need to announce it. She's too busy living it, the one who's hurting. She performs healing, she performs detachment, she performs peace. But silence has no audience. And in the quiet moments when no one's watching, that's when truth strikes hardest. She reaches for her phone, then pulls her hand back. She types a message, then deletes it. She wonders what you're doing, but knows she has no access to find out. You're no longer available, not just emotionally, but energetically. And that shift, that vanishing point, it hits her like a wave. Because once you disappear for real, she realizes this isn't a game anymore. It's a door that won't reopen. Now she's the one watching. She's the one craving certainty. She's the one guessing where she stands. And the man who used to give her clarity, he's gone. Not bitter, not cruel, just gone. And that's what women remember. Not the loud ones who begged, not the emotional ones who exploded, not the soft ones who waited. They remember the man who left, without ceremony, the man who didn't need closure, the man who never looked back. Because that man doesn't chase what leaves. He lets silence do the teaching. And silence always teaches the hardest lessons. She'll never tell her friends how much it stings. She'll never say your name in the same tone again. But somewhere in her private world, behind the filters and forced laughter, you'll live rent-free, not because you tried, not because you manipulated, but because you mastered what most men never do. You stayed still and let the silence speak for you. You don't chase her, and that changes everything. Because the longer she waits for a signal that never comes, the louder her thoughts become. Not just about you, about herself. Silence doesn't just make her wonder where you are. It forces her to face what she did. And that's something pride isn't built to survive. At first, she called it self-respect, called it healing, told herself you were replaceable. She called your silence immaturity, called your stillness a game, laughed with her friends at your lack of effort. But effort isn't strength. Effort isn't always leadership. And somewhere between the fake smiles and hollow plans, she starts to feel the weight of what you didn't say. Because when a man walks away quietly when he says nothing, explains nothing, asks for nothing, he becomes unforgettable. Not through presence, through absence, through the image burned into her mind of the man who didn't break. And that image doesn't fade. It grows sharper with every man she meets who talks too much, needs too much, tries too hard. You become contrast. You become calibration. Every man after you gets measured against the one who didn't flinch, didn't follow, didn't fall apart. And it eats at her, because she was supposed to be the one with the upper hand. She was supposed to move on first. She was supposed to be the one who got admired from a distance, not the other way around. But now the roles are reversed. She's looking, she's remembering, she's wondering if she misread everything. Was he faking it? Was he just buying time? Or did he really stop needing me? And if the answer is yes, if he really let go, then what does that say about me? These are the thoughts that start to unravel the mask, because silence creates the one thing her pride cannot defend against self-doubt. And self-doubt doesn't shout. It whispers. It tells her you might not care anymore. It tells her you might be with someone who actually sees you. It tells her she might have thrown away the one man who actually understood her. And those whispers, they echo louder than any text she ever expected. But this only works if you remain untouchable. Not rude, not vengeful, just unavailable, emotionally sealed, energetically distant. Stoic in your silence, not reactive in your pain. You're not punishing her. You're protecting the ground you reclaimed. Because the second you reach back, the illusion resets. She doesn't have to reflect. She doesn't have to face anything. She doesn't have to regret. Because you gave her the out. You gave her the relief. You gave her what most men give access without effort. And that more than anything will make her forget you. Not hate, not drama, not pain, but access. She doesn't regret the men who stayed within reach. She regrets the man she thought would wait, and didn't. The man who chose his dignity over a second chance. The man who outgrew her silently. The man who didn't flinch when she disappeared. Because women don't cry over men who begged. They cry over the ones who vanished into purpose. The ones who turned the loss into legacy. The ones who didn't post about the pain. The ones who let the silence do all the speaking. That's who you're becoming. Not because you're heartless, but because you're done being predictable. You're done explaining, done performing, done seeking approval from someone who couldn't hold your presence when it mattered. And that's what haunts her, that she didn't get the version of you who learned how to lead himself. That she left before you became the man she'd actually respect. That now when she sees glimpses of your strength, she knows they're not for her anymore. And there's no text, no photo, no apology. That can undo that realization. That's what true emotional control creates. Not attraction, not curiosity, but regret. And not just momentary regret. The kind that lingers. The kind that stays buried under new relationships and louder distractions. The kind that creeps back in when the room is quiet and the mask slips. That's the legacy of the man who walked away. Not loudly, not bitterly. Just once. And for good. There will come a day when she scrolls through her feed and doesn't smile. Not because something went wrong, but because everything feels wrong. Nothing she posts hits the way it used to. The likes feel empty. The attention feels flat. She'll be surrounded by messages, options, compliments, and still, she won't feel chosen because being wanted is not the same as being seen. And no matter how many men want her, you were the one who saw her. The way she laughed before the punchline. The way she stayed quiet when she was hurt. The way she broke eye contact when she was about to be honest. You read her like silence. And that's the one language these new men never learned. They chase the surface. You remembered the core, and she feels that. She feels it when she's alone, when the distractions wear off, when her curated strength crumbles at midnight. And in that moment, she'll want to reach out. Not to say I miss you, not to apologize, but just to feel connected to something real again. But she won't. She'll stare at her screen fingers frozen, because now the dynamic has shifted. You're no longer the man she left. You're the man she can't read. And when a woman can't read you, she can't control you. That's what changes everything, because you're not predictable anymore, not emotionally accessible, not waiting at the edge of her silence with open arms. You've stepped off the stage. You've left the conversation. You've taken your power and your absence elsewhere. And she can feel that absence like gravity. But here's the key. You don't need her to admit it. You don't need the "I'm sorry." You don't need the "I miss you." You don't need the message that says "I made a mistake." Because true strength doesn't need closure. It is the closure. You are the unfinished sentence she keeps rereading, the story without an ending. The man who taught her more in silence than you ever could with words. Because when a man walks with purpose, he doesn't just disappear from her life, he lingers in her memory. Not as a ghost, but as a mirror. A mirror she tries to avoid, because it reflects everything she lost when she thought she had time. But you're not here to be remembered. You're not here to be mourned. You're here to become untouchable. And untouchable isn't about being above her. It's about being beyond her. Beyond the need for validation. Beyond the loop of closure. Beyond the reach of anyone who couldn't hold your truth the first time. That's what your silence does. It separates you. It evolves you. It protects the version of you that would have settled for less. And when she realizes she no longer has access, not just to your attention but to your energy, it won't feel like freedom. It'll feel like loss. Because the truth is simple. She never expected you to grow. She expected you to wait, to chase, to linger. She expected the same old patterns. But you didn't repeat the cycle. You broke it. And when a man breaks the cycle, he becomes dangerous, not to her, to her story. Because now she has to rewrite the ending. Now she has to live with the version of you that didn't need to say a word because your actions were louder than any goodbye. You don't come back with flowers. You don't return with closure. You don't perform your pain for attention. You vanish into silence, into purpose, into self-mastery. And she can't chase that. She can chase nostalgia. She can chase old feelings. But she can't reach the man who no longer resides in that chapter, because that chapter is closed. And the next one, it's not about her, it's about you, about what you're building, about the empire you're creating without apology. And the more you build, the smaller her silence becomes. Because it's no longer your prison. It's her mirror. And that, she can't escape. At first she thought you were bluffing, that your silence was a tactic, that it had an expiration date. She gave it a week, maybe 2, expected the message, expected the moment you'd crack. Because that's what most men do. They go quiet until they get scared. They wait until the loneliness bites hard enough. Then they fold. They reach out. Not because they want to, but because they have to. because they can't take the ambiguity, because silence feels like suffocation. But you didn't fold. You didn't check her story. You didn't like the picture. You didn't accidentally send something passive and polite. You vanished clean. No breadcrumbs, no noise, no leaks in your frame. And the longer it lasts, the more real it becomes. Not just for her, for you. Because you're not waiting anymore. You're not wondering. You're not operating from memory. You're building forward. And that's what she never planned for. She thought she could pause you, put you on a shelf, return when ready. But you don't pause. You don't stall. You don't stay on ice waiting to be chosen. You burn cold. You rise in silence. You lead without witness. And now it's her story that's cracking. The one where she had time. The one where you were still emotionally parked at the curb. The one where her absence made her the prize. But absence only works when the other person notices. And you've stopped noticing. You're not counting days. You're not checking timelines. You're not sitting in limbo hoping for a return. You've crossed the line where hope ends and identity begins. She doesn't know this version of you, and that's what terrifies her. Because mystery is magnetic. Not the fake kind. Not the curated, polished mystery of social media. The real kind. The kind built through discipline, through detachment, through silence so deep it echoes inside the ones who took you for granted. She starts to feel that echo. Not in the moments she's surrounded, but in the moments she's alone, when the lights are off, when the notifications stop, when her phone is quiet and so are her thoughts. That's when your name returns. Not because you reminded her, but because your absence has grown too loud to ignore. And still you say nothing. You hold. You hold the line. You hold your frame. You hold your emotions like a man who knows what they're worth. And what you're really doing. You're forcing the consequences, not with anger, not with blame, but with stillness. You're not punishing her. You're just refusing to rescue her from the choice she made. She chose distance. She chose silence. She chose pride over presence. So let her sit with it. Let her feel what it's like to lose a man who didn't just care, but stopped caring out loud. Because that's the part she never expected. Not the initial silence. The sustained silence. The silence that doesn't ask if she's okay. The silence that doesn't wait for her to come around. The silence that doesn't check in even after months. And slowly, her ego loses oxygen. Because ego feeds on attention. Ego feeds on reaction. Ego feeds on men who can't hold their position. But you're done feeding her story. Now you're feeding your future. Every day you stay silent, you build. Clarity, focus, vision. Not just about her, about you, because now you see it. Not just her behavior, your own pattern. The old you, the one who sought peace through someone else's presence. He's gone. And in his place, a man who can weather solitude without breaking. A man who doesn't need someone to reach out to feel worthy. A man who doesn't measure his value by how fast someone returns. That's the kind of man she'll never forget. Not because he made noise, but because he disappeared into strength. The first time she dreams about you again, she won't talk about it. She'll wake up disoriented. A memory she didn't invite. A feeling she can't place. You weren't supposed to follow her there, not after all this time, not after all her pretending. But silence doesn't leave quietly. It echoes, and it always returns when the world goes quiet. That dream won't be romantic. It won't be vivid. It'll be subtle just enough to leave a mark. Your voice, your eyes, the way you stood without needing her approval. That energy. She forgot what it felt like. Not because it faded, but because she buried it beneath distractions. But distraction has a shelf life. And now that it's expired, you return. Not as a text, not as a memory, as a question. How did he forget me so easily? Why didn't he fight for me? Did I ever matter? And the truth is, you did care, but you cared in silence. You let the silence do what she never allowed your presence to do, grow. That's the paradox she'll never admit. You became more valuable the moment you stopped showing up. Because most men never get past that point. They send the message. They chase the story. They need her to know they're strong. But you didn't explain. You didn't argue. You didn't announce your absence. You just let go. And letting go, without anger, without warning, without a scene, that's what haunts people. Because rage can be dismissed. Closure can be filed away. Even heartbreak can be pitied. But quiet self-respect, that stays. It lingers in her chest like a door she never got to reopen. Like a goodbye she didn't get to control. And now she scrolls through a feed that doesn't include her anymore. Your wins don't mention her. Your silence doesn't credit her. Your evolution doesn't revolve around her. And the deeper you go into your life, the further she fades. Not from your memory, but from your relevance. That's what she feels now. Not rejection, insignificance. And that burns more than any breakup. To watch a man who once needed you thrive without you, laugh without you, command without you. It stings in the places she told herself were healed. But healing isn't forgetting. Healing is accepting. And she hasn't accepted what she did. Because it didn't feel like a mistake until your silence showed her what she lost. And here's what most men never realize. She's not watching because she wants you back. She's watching because she wants access to the version of you she never got to know. The one who stopped asking. The one who stopped explaining. The one who became complete. And now the idea of you grows faster than the memory of you. Because mystery expands. And she has no script for this version of you. This version doesn't orbit her, doesn't care what she posts, doesn't beg for a seat at her table. This version is building his own kingdom when she no longer gets to enter. That's the moment she realizes you're not avoiding her. You've outgrown her. You didn't disappear to hurt her. You disappeared because you healed. And healed men don't need permission to move on. They move forward without apology, without announcement, without resentment. They rise. And when a man rises without looking back, he becomes something the world respects but can't touch. You're not a ghost. You're not a memory. You're the man who taught her that silence can be final, that absence can be strength, that the truest power doesn't come from proving you've changed, but from becoming someone she no longer recognizes. She'll keep checking. Not every day, but enough. Just to make sure you haven't forgotten her completely. It won't be curiosity anymore. It'll be something colder, something closer to fear. Because if you've truly moved on, she's not just losing your attention. She's losing the last connection to a version of herself that felt seen. That's what most men don't realize. She didn't just want your love. She wanted your gaze, your ability to read between the words, to listen without interrupting, to touch her soul without needing to touch her skin. And when that kind of presence disappears, she doesn't search for a replacement. She searches for the feeling, but the feeling doesn't come back. Not with new names, not with louder compliments, not with bigger distractions. Because what she's chasing isn't just connection, it's gravity. The silent pull of a man who didn't orbit her emotions. The rare steadiness of a man who didn't flinch when tested. And the more she looks, the more rare you become. Because most men have no edge, no discipline, no emotional breaks. They react, they chase, they hope. But you moved in silence. You broke the loop. You never tried to make her see what she lost. And now she does. But not through confrontation, not through pain, through absence. Through the daily ache of not being able to reach you, not being able to influence you, not being able to matter like she used to. You've become her blind spot. And blind spots are terrifying. Because she doesn't know if you still think about her. She doesn't know if she still lives in your mind. She doesn't know if the door is still cracked open or welded shut. And the longer you stay silent, the heavier those questions become. Not because you're playing games, but because you're done playing altogether. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. And now your life reflects it. Your posture, your pace, your presence, everything about you speaks louder than anything you could have said. And this is what separates you. Most men want revenge. You want evolution. Most men want her to regret it. You want to forget the part of you that ever needed her to see you. And now you build. Not to prove, not to post, to become. To become the kind of man who walks into a room and doesn't chase attention because he is attention. Not loud, not flashy, just undeniable. That's what silence does. It lets you grow in the dark. So when the light returns, you don't need validation. You're already complete. And when she sees you again, if she ever does, it won't feel familiar. It won't feel like coming home. It'll feel like trespassing. Because the door she left open is gone. The bridge she burned wasn't rebuilt. You didn't wait. You didn't pause. You didn't leave a trail of breadcrumbs. You closed the chapter, not with bitterness, but with becoming. And when she reaches for the past, she'll find nothing to hold. Just silence. And a man who used to be reachable, but isn't anymore. That's the moment it hits, not the memory, the loss, not the fantasy, the fact that she had something rare and let it go, and there is no door left to knock on. You are not the same man, and she is no longer the exception. You're not looking back, because forward is the only direction a man of value walks. There's no ceremony to the moment she realizes you're gone. No dramatic music, no confession, no grand text that rewrites the past. It happens quietly, maybe in traffic, maybe during a song, maybe on a random Tuesday afternoon when her mind goes still for just a second too long. And suddenly she feels it. You're not coming back. Not because you're bitter, not because you hate her, but because you don't need her anymore. You've stepped into something heavier than memory. You've stepped into presence, and presence doesn't look back. You don't sit around replaying conversations. You don't stalk old photos. You don't relive what could have been. Because what is has become far more powerful. Your mission, your code, your silence. That's what grew in her absence. She was the lesson, not the loss. She was the fire you walked through, not the warmth you returned to. And now when she scrolls, when she thinks, when she remembers, she won't find you. Not the version who chased, not the one who waited, not even the one who wanted closure. She'll find a shadow, a silence, an unanswered question. Because you didn't just stop texting. You stopped responding with your energy. And that is what truly breaks the bond. When a man removes his attention, he removes her lifeline. Because women don't thrive off love alone. They thrive off significance, off knowing they still live in your orbit. But you've cut the gravity. You're building a world that doesn't have her name carved into it anymore. A future where she's not the reason behind your moves, but a chapter that taught you how to move without her. That's the difference. Most men pretend to move on. You did. And when she finally realizes it's real, that the door's not just locked but buried beneath a new foundation, that's when the regret blooms. Not the kind that screams, the kind that lingers, the kind that shows up in quiet moments. When she sees a man who looks like you, when she hears your name and it cuts deeper than expected. The kind of regret that doesn't fade, because it never got to be resolved. But you don't owe her that resolution. You gave your presence, you gave your attention, you gave your care. She had it. She walked away. And now she lives with the result of that decision. You live free because you didn't trade your dignity for comfort. You didn't trade your frame for affection. You didn't become smaller to be chosen. You rose in silence. And the man who rises in silence becomes the man every woman remembers, not for what he said, not for what he posted, for what he refused to do. He refused to chase. He refused to break. He refused to lose himself for someone who couldn't hold his presence. And that kind of refusal, that calm, unshakable discipline, that's what makes you unforgettable. She'll watch, she'll wonder, she'll wish, but she will never again hold access to the man you became after you let her go without needing a single word. That man doesn't return calls from the past. He builds futures they can only watch from a distance. You didn't watch this because you're looking for tips. You stayed because something in you already knew what silence means, knew what it costs to fold, knew what it feels like when a man finally stops chasing and starts building. So if you've felt that shift, if your silence isn't pain but power, comment below. Not to be seen, but to mark your line. Say it simply, I've let go, or still, unavailable, evolving. And if this is the kind of presence that reminds you who you are, subscribe, because we don't post to perform. We post to protect the standard, the voice, the energy, the code. This isn't about getting her back. It's about never losing yourself again. You don't need closure. You are the closure.